10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hooligans! We back for the season finale of the Hooligans League podcast, and we got a hot one. Better late than never. This is going to be a very special episode to close the year out, so I hope y'all ready. With our biggest ever season coming to an end, you know I had to bring it right. You know I had to bring it with an explosive episode. This is going to be our biggest episode yet. We're going to talk about what to expect in the off season. We'll recap the entire season. We'll crown the champ. And, oh yeah, we have some special guest appearances in this episode. 12 of them to be exact. What a fucking episode. So if you haven't already taken a seat or switched this from your phone to the big screen, this is now the time. Hooligans League podcast, season finale. Let's go.
Best in the business when it comes to a quarterback sneak.
Shook the mic. I don't know how that sounded on your end, but I'm excited. So sorry if I'm a little all over the place. You also know I got the drink going on because it's a special episode and it's a Friday night, and hopefully we'll get this published by Friday night, but no promises. It might be a Saturday morning episode. But either way, all right. We have a new champion. And we will certainly get to that. But before we do, we have to recognize that the season, our season, is officially over. It's sad. We have a long time until we pick it back up again. So if you think about it, the football season, regular season next year will kick off second week of September, which means that we will probably draft in the first week of September, and we'll probably have the draft lottery event in August. That's 7 whole months, y'all. 7 fucking months until we're back in season. What are we going to do until then? Let's talk about it. So yes, this is the season finale of the podcast, but that doesn't mean that the podcast is coming to a complete stop. Okay? The podcast continues. I know you like to hear that. So, because we're going in the off season, I'm going to update the podcast schedule accordingly. Okay? I don't know how long these episodes will be. I don't know exactly when they'll come out. But I can tell you, I do know that I will be doing at least one monthly episode. So we got that. So that's something that will continue for the next 7 months. One episode at least a month. And I imagine once we get closer to the season starting, it's probably more frequent than that. What will we cover in these podcasts? Okay. So in the first half of the off season, just going to start with fun. Light hooligan shit, history of the league, maybe some more trivia, dive into the records, highlight funny moments, dumbass moments. I don't know. We'll get into it. We'll figure that out. But the first half of the off season will focus on just us and our hooligan shit. So we can start off light. It won't be a big deal if you miss any of those. There won't be any rule changes. There won't be any league news occurring in those episodes. So If you watch them late, if you don't watch them right away, if you don't watch them at all, it won't cost you one bit. Second half of the offseason, we're going to end with some business. There's a lot of stuff that we have to dive into every summer leading up to this season. That will all take place in the podcast. And we'll dive into that. And I don't know exactly what that schedule will look like, but I've already identified some of the discussion points that'll come up. We'll need to discuss buy-in, payouts, prizes. I've already kind of planted that seed. Continue to think about that. Rule changes, maybe reducing the bench a spot. Coming up with a policy if a game gets canceled. There's definitely some rules to discuss. Event ideas. We have the draft lottery event. We have the actual draft. I know we want to do it in person. And then the trade deadline party. So start hashing some of that out. Rivalry week. We had our first ever rivalry week this year. Nothing on the line, just some bragging rights. We got to think of some ways to hype that up and put some implications on that week. Penalties for losing the league. Maybe elevate that a little bit. And penalties for not playing players who actually play in the game. And then last of all, platform change. I've been toying around with potentially moving from Yahoo. I have an idea. I'll build a proper proposal for it, but that will definitely be one of the topics. So there's a lot to get into. We'll get into that in the podcast late in the off season, probably June, July, August. But if you have ideas, send them my way. You don't have to wait until then to talk to me about it. I just won't be putting anything into vote and having any really serious discussions until the second half of the offseason. And then we got playoffs, y'all. So the podcast is going to continue, even though the season's over. You guys are probably sick of me. Might be sick of each other. But if you're interested in doing something for the playoffs, I can certainly set that up. It could be a playoff bracket. It could be, picking a fantasy team for the playoffs, Super Bowl squares. I don't know. I'm open to any ideas. Throw them out there. Talk about it in the group chat. And I'm happy to throw something together real quick and keep the competition going. So, playoffs? If you want to do it, let's talk about it. Okay, so let's get back to the podcast. Now that we've got that through, I'm serious. If you have ideas for the playoffs, put them in the chat. I'm down. I am down. So I might have lied to you already, though, because we were supposed to have our first special guest of the episode for this next segment, but I don't know where the fuck he is. I've called him, texted him. It's one of your favorite people, I would think. Maybe not every, maybe half the league appreciates this guy, and there's definitely some who don't like him, but I don't think we're gonna have him, unfortunately. Oh shit! Wait a second. Right on cue though. He's calling me up. Maybe he's outside. Coach Gracef. What's going on, Graceffa? Where are you at? What do you mean? I told you about this a number of times. You know I've been trying to get you on the podcast. We're supposed to do the 2022 numbers segment. I mean, you did the power rankings every week. They had numbers in it. I'm sure you can handle this.
You did the power rankings. You gotta stop lying to them. I can't do shit.
Okay. Yep. All right. Well, we're changing the theme next season, most likely anyway. So thanks for nothing, Gracef. Just wanted you to join us one time. All right. Well, if you decide to show up, I got some whiskey for you, okay? Well, that's a bummer. Not gonna have Gracef. We have I had a special segment lined up, and I thought he'd be perfect for it. But I guess I'll have to do it on my own. Oh well. So for this, we're going to do a recap of 2022, the whole season in a nutshell. Going to be doing it a little differently, though. You've probably noticed by now that I'm a numbers guy. So here is the 2022 season by the numbers. 17 weeks, $2,460 in the pot, one controversial canceled game, one champion, one survivor champion, one loser, twice. Dickie, you suck. Two new trophies, 1,094 fab dollars spent, 483 transactions, 18 transactions short of 100 for Pickle Rick, though. Didn't get to 100. Disappointed in you, Rick. 21 trades, multiple trade rapes, one trade rape so bad that it had to be adjusted, and then 372 angry texts about that trade. That was fun. 14 episodes of the podcast, 528 podcast views, and check this, 111 views on episode 4 alone. I will never understand why. How many dumbass managers of the week given out? Not enough. Y'all stupid. 6 records broken. 7 matchups decided by 2 points or fewer. 33 matchups won by 30 points or more. That's a lot of blowouts. 6 170-point performances. 2 70-point victories by Silverman. 68.36 points scored by James in week 5, worst week of the season, but not a record-breaking week, which is pretty baffling to me. 12 hooligans and 1 fucking epic season. That is 2022 in a nutshell. One hell of a year. A lot of numbers in there. I actually understand now why Graceffa didn't want to show up. That would have been a little tricky for him. But his math did improve over the season. If you got to see him in the back room working on these things, he was pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. So next, we are going to... What the fuck? Of course. Graceffa texted. He's not coming to join, unfortunately. But he did want me to tell you, Dick. He said you suck, or your team sucks. And he also wanted to know if you still carry a gallon jug around. He said that was stupid. I guess that's his way of saying he's thinking about you, Dickie. And honestly, that's perfect timing, because we just recapped the full season. Now it's time to recap the individual performances from the year. And Dickie, since you came in last place, you're up first. And I'm going to do this for every team. We all spent a lot of time, a lot of money on this season. Some walked away feeling really good. Some walked away feeling, meh, that was fun. And others, I don't even know how you felt. But regardless, you each deserve a spotlight. So here goes our first ever manager spotlight. All right, Dick. So like I said, you're up first. Deb Steele, your girl. Honestly, you started the season off with a bang. You killed it from the jump. Best team name in the league. I honestly thought you were about to win it right there, because you clearly were locked in. Your brain was operating at tip-top capacity, and that's probably your biggest achievement from the league. And if anything, I think you'll be remembered for a long, long time. Maybe more for the name than the shitty ass season. Only time will tell. But let's get into your shitty ass season. Yeah, like I've mentioned a number of times, you came in last place not once but twice, earning you the nickname of Double Toilet Dick, coined by me, only said by me, and I'll keep that going. With your loss in the toilet bracket playoffs, you brought your earnings to a whopping $0 fucking dollars. You made no money. That sucks. You were 11th in points scored against, 4th in points, or 11th in points scored, 4th in points scored against. And you had a rocky draft. You drafted 9th overall. You actually nailed it with your wide receivers, even though they were from different teams or from the same team. Waddle and Tyreek Hill were both fantastic draft picks. So you did have some really great moves there, but then you kind of tanked your draft away with Elijah Mitchell, Joe Mixon, Hunter Renfrow. And then I would mention Justin Fields. He seemed like a really bad draft pick, but then you traded him away and he did really good. You made some other moves as well, but probably don't need to note them. So not your best season, obviously. Probably your worst. There are some notes here. You tied the record for most losses ever with 12. So that's not good. And I bet if we include the playoffs, that 13, that might be the record-breaking number, actually. You tied the record for worst kicking week ever with -2 points. You had the least points by drafted players at under 60 per week. And you had the least rushing yards per week with just over 131. So really no positive things here on this screen. That's not intentional. That's just what the data told me. Your highlight of the season, to me, had to be week 3. When, Dickie, you had 3 San Francisco 49er running backs on your team, along with 2 kickers. You were clearly in a little bit of trouble because your quarterbacks were not playing well, and you decided, let me stack up on San Francisco 49er running backs and kickers. Week 3, Dickie, that's probably when your season was over. So great year, Dick. Thank you for the money. We had a lot of fun. See you next year. Radler, you're next. 11th place. You barely snuck by Dickie twice. That roast could have been all on you, and there would have been also a good amount of material to dive into you. You also earned $0 on the year with your loss in the toilet bracket. You ended up in 10th in points scored and 5th in points against. Not good. Your draft. You drafted 2nd overall, and it was looking like you might have dominated the draft when you look back and you look at your first few picks. You went heavy running back and you crushed it. CMC, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb. Probably the most impressive first 3 rounds out of any team in the league. But then your draft picks really fell off, mainly because of injuries with Trey Lance and Dak Prescott. That hurt you significantly. And then to make matters worse, you traded for a quarterback later. I don't remember who that trade was with. You got Justin Herbert, and he didn't help you out either. So just a rough season. You did, though, have the most defensive points in a week with 30 points in week 13. So that's pretty impressive. But you had the least touchdowns in the league, only scoring 4.5 each week. Most defensive points in a week. I mean, hey, there's at least a good thing on your screen. And your highlight, it's not a highlight at all, it's a low light. I mean, it has to be weeks 1 through 4, where you lost Dak Prescott in week 1, Trey Lance in week 2, Mac Jones in week 3, Brian Hoyer in week 4. 4 quarterbacks down in 4 consecutive weeks. Never seen anything like that. That's shit luck. Sorry you had to go through that. It was a lot of fun to watch, but damn, that was brutal. But at least you are the Dick Slayer, taking him down twice and sending him to last place. So that's a victory. You should be proud of that. Jovi, you came in 10th place from overseas, though, so you were at a disadvantage. You earned $20 after you pay your toilet bracket fee. Came in 8th in points scored, 6th in points against. Not too shabby. Really, you had a crappy draft, which is really what killed you. You had the number 1 pick overall, and you got screwed. 2 solid picks with A.J. Brown and Ramondre Stevenson, which honestly, those 2 guys really might have saved you for a big portion of the season. But then with Jonathan Taylor, Kyle Pitts, Mike Evans, and DJ Moore for most of the year being early picks for you, you got crushed. And then even when you tried to make a move, you finally made a trade, tried to make a move, tried to save the season. You trade for Jimmy G, and he gets hurt. So just some shit luck, but also some bad decisions, and we'll get into that in a second. You had the longest losing streak of the year with 6. You had the least offensive points, averaging just under 102 a week. You had the least passing yards ever with 317. 317 between 2 quarterbacks. Yeah, that was one of the really bad decisions that I was kind of just referencing. It's the quarterbacks. But you had the best receiving yards week with 572. So your wide receivers did pop off once, but man, those passing yards and to talk about those passing yards, the highlight of the season has to be you breaking your own record for least passing yards ever. In 2020, you broke the record for least passing yards ever. And this year, you went and drafted Baker Mayfield in the 8th and Mariota in the 10th. Didn't get a third quarterback, and that led to you breaking your own record. So you're committed to that strategy, and you're getting even better at it. So congrats on breaking your own record. I'm not even sure I broke a record this year. James, Jimmer, LaBelle, 9th place. Not bad. No, it is bad. Not terrible. Not terrible. Not good. But what is pretty good, what's decent, is you earned yourself $66. So could have been a lot worse with your toilet bracket final participation where you got a percentage because of that game. You got yourself up to $66. So pretty solid. That puts you close to the top half of the league there. So I'm sure there are people that are definitely jealous of that number. 9th in points scored, though. 3rd in points against. Your draft, not great. Not many guys to really highlight. And just to be clear, like for these draft picks, I'm really only emphasizing the really good or the really bad. Someone who just slightly underperformed or overperformed, I'm not going to highlight. And James, Pollard was really the only one who stood out to me for you. And I almost didn't put him on there because it was unfortunate because you had Ezekiel Elliott. So that just made it challenging for you. The story of your season really was your quarterback drafting. You got Russell Wilson. I've talked about him a ton. He might be the biggest bust of the year. Him or honestly Elijah Mitchell, but we all kind of knew that Elijah Mitchell wasn't going to live up to where Dickey drafted him. I think a lot of us thought that Russell Wilson could have been a great 4th round pick, but he was not. And then you had Jameis as your second quarterback, and he got hurt early, and then apparently they just didn't trust him to give him the job back. So you fell into some tough waters pretty quickly. That killed you. Then you did the Jamar Chase for Jared Goff trade, which looked terrible at first for anyone who really looked at it. And then Jamar Chase got hurt. And then it looked okay, nice. And then Jared Goff became Jared Goff again and was terrible. So that was a roller coaster. He ended up picking up at the end, but it was a little too late for that. For some just quick notes, you had the highest average margin of defeat. Highest average margin of defeat. Wow, I didn't even realize that when I wrote it down. So when you lost, you got your ass kicked. Apparently, I don't know the exact number. And then, as I've noted, you had the worst week of the year. So, not some good notes there. And then to pile it on, your highlight of the season had to be weeks 5 and 9 when you started Jameis, who didn't play, and Brandon Cooks, who didn't play. And now we're discussing having penalties for doing that. You jimmered it. That will probably go down as the jimmer. So that wasn't smart. You were already behind, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. Caveman, Boozin' Brennan. 8th place, no money earned. 7th in points, 8th in points against. Just a pretty forgettable season at this point. You drafted Diggs. Fantastic draft pick. You also drafted Allen Robinson, Deontay Johnson, and J.K. Dobbins, who just completely fucked you. All your other picks were pretty decent, but those 3 really killed you, which is really unfortunate. And then you did try to make a move that you felt would help Fournette for Geno Smith, and it ended up looking decent, but it just didn't move the needle for you. So tough year. You actually had the smallest average margin of defeat. So you were in it when you lost. You just maybe were a move or two away from pulling out the dub, and actually some of you might know what's coming. Your highlight of the season was losing back-to-back weeks in week 4 and 5 by a total of 2.5 points. Because why? Because you continued to start Allen Robinson, even though I told you not to, who only had 6 catches and 88 yards total through the first 3 weeks. And then you said, let's do it again. Because Allen Robinson, no, he was really bad last year too. Yeah, I just don't know. That cost you. You could have got 2 more wins. And who knows what would have happened if your season had started with 2 extra wins there. So tough year. Thanks for the money. Chris, Trish, I'm not saying your nickname in there because I hate this name. I hate it. It makes me laugh, but I hate it. You are the toilet bracket champion. Congratulations. I know that you and James arranged a payout where you're getting 60%, he's getting 40%. That gets you to $76 earned on the year. Congrats. To everyone else who participated in the toilet bracket and lost, please send your $10 to Chris, and he'll send the appropriate amount to James. So if you lost, Dickie, Joe V, Caveney, and James, and Radler, send $10 to Chris, and he'll figure out the rest of the money. It's funny that we're highlighting you here as the toilet bracket champ, as 7th place, because you came in 12th in points scored. Not good at all. We talked a lot about Chow's luck. Maybe we should have talked about your luck a little bit more, because that is bad. 7th in points against. Yeah, your record should have been worse, but you figured it out. You had the smallest win of the year with .22. You had the smallest average margin of victory. So when you won by a little bit. You had the least points. I already talked about that. You had the least kicking points, averaging 6.94 a week. You had the least defensive points. So special teams, not your thing. You just don't like it, I guess. And you had the least receiving yards, averaging 238 a week. That's bad. You get 3 wide receivers your running backs can catch, and you have a flex. 238. Not the record, though. And let's look at your draft. You had Austin, Awesome Eckler, RB1 overall. Got to get credit for that. And then things really go south. Debo did not perform. Matt Stafford did not perform. Darren Waller did not perform. But I could have added more players here, but you did try to make some moves. You got Diggs, and honestly, this is the highlight of your season. Trade deadline weekend, you acquired Diggs, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Mixon in a matter of hours, just completely switching up your team, building up some variance to try to see if you can make a late season push. And it was fun to watch. It obviously didn't play out the way that you had hoped, but definitely worth note. That was a great effort, and that's why we have that trade party weekend. So now to our playoff contenders. Dan the Man Santola, Mr. Wings Wang. Congrats on 6th place. $45 earned. We're definitely switching up the prizes for playoff participants next year. You should have more than $45. That's a mistake. You came in 6th in points scored, 11th in points against. And honestly, you started the season off very hot. You were seen as one of the juggernauts early on, and then slowly but surely as the season progressed, you just trended down until the end of the season where you actually finished off the year with 5 straight losses, including your playoff matches. So just not a good finish to the season. What's funny is you still ended up with the largest average margin of victory. When you won. And I guess that's partially due to that you were 11th in points scored against. But your average victory was 37 points. So just a blowout when you did win. You had the best week, obviously got paid for that. But really it's funny. I'm going to talk about your draft, and your draft actually wasn't that good, but you had the least points from non-drafted players this year at 21.4 per week. And I guess that comes down to the fact that you had to miss the trade deadline party, because we all know if you were there, you would have been making trades. And you actually were the only person in the league who didn't make a trade all year. And that might have been what hurt you at the end. Because your draft, it certainly didn't help you too much. You had 3rd overall. I had to highlight Josh Allen, not because he brought 3rd overall value. I mean, he arguably did, but he really wasn't so special. I had to shout him out, but he carried your team for a while. So I had to take note of that. Then you had some late round wide receiver picks that were very solid with Tyler Lockett and Jacoby Myers. If you go look at the numbers, you'll see that those were great picks. But then in some of your picks above them, really what killed you, especially in the second half of the season. Alvin Kamara bummed it up all year. Cam Akers, is he getting traded? Is he getting retired? Then Aaron Rodgers, he should retire. Michael Thomas, did he retire? I mean, that dude just doesn't play football. So not a great draft. But you still ended up in the middle of the pack. You still ended up in the playoffs. You still won some money. And you make the playoffs. You have a history of making the playoffs. In the summer, or not in the summer, in the off season, when I review the history, we're definitely going to have a segment on your team, because you have been a surprise juggernaut in the league. And I want everyone to know that. But for your highlight of the season, sorry, it's not even going to be like team related. It had to be the GIF that shook the world, the Always Sunny rape text. I'll never forget the rape text, because it led to so much. So thank you for that contribution. I imagine if you had been at the trade deadline party, I probably would have been shouting out something from there instead. So we're going to make sure you're there next year. Senor Pobre Holmes, Dan the Silverman. Congrats on 5th place. $100 earned. Some solid money right there. Half your buy-in. 2nd in points scored. Very impressive. Made a late surge in the last week of the year. 10th in points against. That's a nice, comfortable place to be. But it's funny because there's not actually that much to highlight about your team. It was just a kind of slow, solid producer. You had the most defensive points on the year, with New England D getting you over 10 every week. But really, you just had the cleanest draft. You drafted 7th overall, and I couldn't identify anyone who was like a home run pick or anyone that was a bust pick. And you just get the clean sweep. Your first 7 picks were Derrick Henry, solid. Devontae Adams, solid. James Conner, could have been better, but not terrible. Montgomery, could have been better, but not terrible. Kirk Cousins, very solid. Tua, very solid. Dameon Pierce, very solid. Clean first 7 picks. And that helped you get to second in points. So kudos to you, and kudos to whoever you listen to on Reddit for some of your stuff. I need to check out Reddit more because you didn't miss. It just, maybe you need the later round picks. I don't think you had too many great later round picks, but that's solid. You want to win your top 6. Highlight of the year has to be the epic Battle of the Dans in week 6, where you were going against Dan Santola, who he might have been first place or second place at the time, and you were trying to climb up the standings, and you had a bunch of guys on bye, and you snagged Deion Jackson out from under him and gave him the upset, the beatdown because of it. Great move. And it put you in position to be in the playoffs, and great managers make great plays. So you actually have a highlight of the year. Most people, it's actually a low light, but you get a highlight. Rick, Pickle Rick. Okay. Congrats on 4th place, even though you might have potentially won 3rd if it wasn't for the game cancellation. You earned $152.50. So just under your buy-in, but the 4th highest amount in the league. 4th in points scored, 9th in points against. You had the best kicking week. You scored 23 with your kicker in week 11, but you had the worst, tied for the worst defensive week with -4 one week. I know you had a rough go about it with defenses pretty much all year. You broke your own record for most points non-drafted players. You averaged 77 points a week from non-drafted players. That's actually insane. And you averaged the most receiving yards per week with over 364, just about 365. When I was looking through your team, this was like, because you've made so many moves, because some of your drafted players weren't even on your team that long, it did make it very challenging and interesting. And honestly, you had a rockier draft than I would have anticipated. You killed it with Justin Jefferson. Jalen Hurts, best pick of the draft. You nailed it with Geno Smith, who you ended up trading away. But obviously, Javonte Williams wasn't great. Then he got hurt. D'Andre Swift, I mean, yeah, he sucked. That was bad. Cortland Sutton, A.J. Dillon, like you had some serious busts on your team, but you still turned it around, whether it was through the waiver wire or through trades. I didn't even want to put the list of people you traded and how it mattered, because like you basically traded the whole damn world. And we've talked about your trades enough, but impressive season despite the 4th place. You battled a lot. And I could have picked a number of highlights for you, but it had to just be the 3-team trade. I mean, had to be. You basically got a free Dak Prescott. You weren't even a part of the deal. You inserted yourself. I've already talked about it. Just fucking great trade deadline management. That's why we got to come together in person. You don't get moments like that. But great season. I know it's not the result you wanted, but you managed your ass off. Let's get to me. 3rd place. Could have been 4th. Who knows what would have happened. I won my buy-in back just a little bit more, $237.50. First in points scored, second in points against. Fucking impressive season. Just couldn't get the job done. When you include the playoffs, I ended up having the hardest schedule of the year. I had the best kicker, almost getting me 10 points per week. Had the most rushing yards, averaging 453 a week. Oh, nope, sorry. I had the best rushing week, which is 453 a week, and averaged the most rushing yards, which was 264. And I made the most trades. Rick was second. He had 7. I was first with 1. My draft is also rocky, kind of like Rick's. There were some good ones in there and some bad ones. My good ones were all later picks, really. My wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Brandon Ayuk, all brought me tremendous value. And then Breece Hall, I'm throwing him up there because he was fucking destroying. I think he was like top 4 running back. Then he got hurt. That sucked. And then I had some bust. Justin Herbert. I drafted him in the first round, and that dude fucking failed me. I was lucky to trade him. I could have had Lamar Jackson on here because even though he had scored 80 plus points in 2 weeks early on, he kind of sucked after. Michael Pittman sucked. Chase Edmonds, fucking bum. I think I drafted him 5th. I don't know. So my draft wasn't great either. I had to make a lot of moves, trades, free agent pickups. Not going to get into all those. Was able to secure first in points though. And my highlight of the season, I mean, I got a lot of great moments that I could talk about. And I wasn't sure which one. So I have to go with the smartest move I made all year, which was getting Ellinger for $54 in the Fab. Fucking phenomenal move. Carried my team for 2 weeks. Shook the league. People were worried what I was about to do when I made that move. I had people texting me, be like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're going to try to trade so-and-so. I shook the league with that, and he shook my roster and fucked my team up. That's what happened with that. So that's my highlight. Sam Ellinger, I'll never forget that. So with our last 2, let's get to the championship participants. Mrs. Berkey's Boobies, Andy Sorebum Bennett. He ended up as the first loser, but in reality, this dude ain't no loser because he won $638 for coming in second place. He was third in points scored, for first in points against. He had the biggest beatdown of the year with nearly 79 points, or beating Silverman by nearly 79 points. He had the most points, including playoffs. So when playoffs were all said and done, he averaged 138 points a game. He tied the worst kicking week ever at -2. He had the best week by drafted players. So I forget, one of the early weeks might have been week 1. 178 points from his drafted players. That's pretty damn impressive. And he had, on the season, the most average points from drafted players, 103. When you look at his draft, he pretty much nailed it. I couldn't find a bad draft pick, a legitimate bad draft pick. All of his bad draft picks were due to injury. He nailed Josh Jacobs, nailed Trevor Lawrence, sniped Jimmy Garoppolo, who wasn't even the starter, but he drafted him and kept him after week 1. And he ended up being a contributor for his team. And then injuries plagued him. I mean, Cooper Kupp going down for the season after having a great year. Keenan Allen going down in week 1. Mark Andrews going down later in the year and never really bouncing back from it. He didn't have a bad pick. And towards the end of the season, he made some moves that helped, or did it help? I actually don't know looking at it. Trading for Jalen Waddle helped. 100%. Especially because he got rid of Mark Andrews. But he also traded for Brian Robinson. And if he doesn't trade for Brian Robinson, maybe he starts Mike Evans in the championship. And maybe he's the champ. Because things would have been way trickier if Andy had a 50-point lead on Chow going into that final game. So maybe that trade is what hurt Andy in the long run, but we'll never know. And since I've already mentioned that Brian Robinson not playing Mike Evans fiasco, we do not need to go into that again. We all learned our lesson. Andy's highlight of the season has to be dropping not one, but two rookie running backs that he drafted right before they became starters. He drafted Kenneth Walker and he drafted Tyler Algier. Fantastic draft picks. And I guess he just didn't have the patience, just didn't want to hold on to them. Everything, all the thought that went into drafting them, I guess, just went away. And he dropped them both, and Kenneth Walker ended up saving Rick's team, kind of. And Tyler Algier helped me make a big trade that got me good guys. And Tyler Algier ended up being a great player down the road. So that's your highlight. That's your low light is dropping those guys, mainly Kenneth Walker. But now it's time to get to Chow. Let's raise our glasses to Chow, to the champ, to Dr. Mark Masturbate Masterson. Dude's got huge sausage energy. And there is a lot to talk about here because the dude dominated all year long. 13-1. He won $1,137 this year. That's how you do it. Yes, 5th in points scored. Not an impressive number, but we'll get into that. 12th in points against. Kind of a shameful number, but we'll get into that. Dude had the most wins ever. Dude had the longest winning streak ever. 13. Actually, I think it's 14. Yeah, it's 14. He had the easiest schedule in the league. He tied the worst defensive week. So there was some low lights, I guess, in here. But he had the most touchdowns, averaging 7.88 a week. He had the best passing week ever, 904 passing yards in one of the weeks. And he had the most passing yards for the league, averaging 572 per week. But had the worst receiving week with 1 week where he only had 110 yards. Chow's quarterbacks really is the story of the draft or the story of his team and the season. And I bet this is going to make some people think twice about the draft. He did what I tried to do, and he just did it a lot better than I did. Chow drafted 12th, and he nailed it with Patrick Mahomes, the number 1 fantasy football player in the league, and also got Joe Burrow in round 3, who was the number 4 fantasy player in the league. And then later in the draft, he got fucking Jamal Williams, who cleaned up the touchdown vulture. And those 3 guys carried his team, having Mahomes and Burrow get the big numbers and Jamal Williams just snagging touchdowns. And if you look at his draft, there are no busts. There really weren't any that I could call a bust. And to make matters worse, the thing you would never expect Chow to do is to go make some big-time trades that ends up being the deciding factor for his championship. He got Justin Jefferson and gave up Patty Mahomes to do it. He was obviously big in the championship round. And part of that downgrade from Patrick Mahomes was upgrading to Tom Brady. And no one will ever believe you, Chow, if you try to make it seem like you thought he was going to go off in the championship. But at the end of the day, you believed that Tom Brady would perform when it mattered most. And he did. I'm not sure we've ever seen a trade determine the championship like it did for you. So congratulations. Your highlight of the year is the whole fucking season. 3 records broken, including most wins, longest streak, ending with a championship. Talking about your Chinese sausage all year long. You deserve it. You're the champ. Congrats. But there were people questioning if it was just luck. So we're going to look into that a little bit. As a reminder, Chow was 5th in points scored, not even top 4, and he was 12th in points against. But those are just rankings. Let's look at them a little bit closer. So for fewest points against, Chow's opponents only averaged 115.5 points per week. That is a low number. That is 19.2 points less than Andy's opponent. So I actually get why Andy was so frustrated about Chow. Because 19 points, that's a big difference. And for more context, Chow, his points against was actually only 0.14 away from the worst record ever, or for the record for least points against ever. He was only 0.14 away. And then looked at it even further. So Chow went against bottom 4 teams 8 out of 14 weeks. So more than half of the time he was going against bottom 4 teams. And he went against bottom 2 teams 3 out of 14 weeks. So he definitely had a cupcake schedule. There is just no debating that. But was his team good? Let's look at that. And when we look at that, it's a very obvious yes. Chow's team was not good. It was great. It was consistent. One of the most consistent teams I've ever seen, actually. So I went and looked. Chow was a top 3 scorer in 7 of 14 weeks. You're not lucky when you're coming top 3. So half the season, Chow was almost guaranteed a dub based on his team's performance. Impressive. He was top 6, 10 of 14 weeks. So you're not lucky when you're top 6 either. So that's already 2/3 of the season where it's not luck. Impressive. Top 3, half the time. Top 6, 10 out of 14 weeks. Okay, so how'd you do in those other 4 weeks? Not that bad. So he was bottom 6, 4 out of 14 weeks. But when you look at the numbers, man, I'm like, anyone would be jealous to have these as your weeks. He came in last once, and most teams had one last place performance. That was his only loss. His only time he lost was when he was literally the worst team that week. But besides that, he came in 8th twice and 7th. He never came in 11th. He never came in 10th. He never came in 9th. 8th twice, 7th and 12th. The dude dominated. Super consistent. Yes, he clearly got some lucky wins here when he came in 7th, 8th, and 8th. But like, when you come in 7th, that means 5 teams had, you outperformed 5 other teams. 4 for 8th. He just cleaned up. And all in all, it may not be the greatest season ever. We will look at that in the offseason. But I think it's the most complete, the most consistent, the cleanest season ever. So, Chow, you clearly earned it. You clearly earned it. Did you deserve a 13-1 record? Probably not. Did you deserve a bye week? Probably. But who knows? If you didn't have as easy of a schedule, maybe you don't get the bye and maybe something switches up. But we don't live in the world of hypotheticals. We live in the world where you are the new champ. And with that said, the league has put together a little message for you. I said that I had 12 special guests, and now here are 10 of them in a tribute to you, Chow.
Mark,
Masturbator Masterson, the good doctor. Trish DeMars here, Trishy, as you know. I want to congratulate you on a great win. You know, I was rooting for you. I've always been a fan of the Chinese sausage. In fact, I think I was one of the only ones that was giving you any credit all year. Always had a sweet spot for you ever since, you know, me, you, and my daughter had that three-way behind the alumni bleachers. But anyway, wanted to congratulate you and maybe stop by sometime. Love you.
Ciao! Congratulations, Dr. Masterson. Too bad you didn't go undefeated, but nobody's perfect. Good for you.
Congrats on the win, Chow. As a previous champion, I just want to welcome you to the Club of Champions and also remind you that I am the only one that you lost to all year. So your team still sucks and my team's better. But congrats.
Chow, they all said that you were lucky, you had a mediocre team, you weren't going to be able to sustain that all season. But guess what? One loss, won the whole thing. They're all just jealous. And when it mattered, you gave Andy that Chinese sausage. So, congrats on a great season. And I hope I can be there when Andy has to hand over that trophy. Right, Chestnut?
Ciao. What can I say? A dominant fantasy football season for you. I would say that our unprecedented, first ever 3-team trade was one of the reasons that you won, but let's face it, you were winning before the trade, you were winning after the trade, you were a juggernaut all season. So, all in all, a nice Asian salute to you, sir. Enjoy the off-season, performing sex acts on your girlfriend with the trophy. And don't you dare pick Justin Jefferson before me next year, okay? That was a loan. That was a loan like in FIFA, capiche?
Hey, John. Jimmer here. Not Mark at all. Jimmer. Congrats on the win. Just wanted to hop on and say you're welcome also for giving you the easiest victory of your life. If it wasn't for my 68-point week performance against you in week 5, I'm not sure you would have won it all. So congratulations. You're welcome. This is Jimmer. Bye.
Congrats, Chow, from the original 2-time champ. Your team stunk, still won, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, you have more money than I do right now from fantasy, so congrats. Still don't like you.
Chow, what's up, buddy? Coming to you from the Middle East. You didn't put up the most points this year, and you had the least amount of points scored against. But, as the great Dominic Toretto once said, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or you win by a mile. Winning is winning. So congrats, bro. Soak it up. Also, soak up this fucking sick mustache I got going. Bail at it.
Hey, Chow. I'm sorry I got drunk and yelled at you about our championship. I don't really remember why. But congrats on your first championship. Maybe first of many. But you deserve it. Congrats, bud.
No, please, I'm not hungry. No, I don't want it. Oh, God, I don't want it. I don't want it. Oh, hey, sorry about that. I was just doing my best impression of Chow versus our entire league this year. In all honesty, though, man, congrats, Chow, a.k.a. Dr. Mark Masturbate Masterson. You killed it. You dominated the entire league. You force-fed us all that Chinese sausage. And, you know, you deserve the championship. Any sort of talks that, you know, your record was better than your actual team, you put that shit to rest. So put a nightcap on it. Congrats again, man. You deserve it. Not gonna lie, it's actually pretty tasty. Oh.
Fuck you, Chow. Fuck you, Chowder. No, fuck you, Chow. Congrats. No, fuck, yeah. Yeah. congratulations, Chow. You really do deserve it. This has been a great year. I've had a lot of fun doing these podcasts, especially this one. This one I've spent a lot of time, too many hours on this podcast, and that means I've had too many to drink right now, which is perfect. It's the right energy that I need for this closing moment. Joe V had a great quote in his tribute, and now I need to bring up the wise words from the great TJ Lavin, which he says to those only deserving, Chow, you killed it. You really did kill it. I walked through it. There's no debating. You had a great season. I'll be rooting against you hard next year. You beat me 3 times. But this is not the end. We have a few more people who are still trying to get into that championship club, and I'm one of them. And as you might recall, some of you might have noticed this. I said there was going to be 12 guest appearances tonight. We had Graceffa who bailed. That's 1. Then we had 10 of our league mates join. That's 11. We got Boba in the back. He's not 12. We have a very special guest for number 12. And you might remember a few weeks ago, I leveraged a Drake song to roast you motherfuckers and let you know that this is my league. And I know, Chow, it is your night. It's your season. But this is my fucking league. This is my podcast. And I cannot let Chow end up on top. So, to close out this podcast, I have a very special guest who's here to help me deliver one last mic drop. Here it is.
Every day I'm hooligan, 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 hooligan.
Coming at you again, one more time. But this time I brought a fucking friend of mine.
It's Drizzy.
You ready, Drake?
You know I'm ready. Hooligans, the ones that are not ready.
Who the fuck you think you fucking with? I'm the fucking mouse. I'm principal and commish, I'm the fucking boss. Scored the most points and made the most trades. I even spent 50 for Fab in just one day.
Tell him, Drake.
So what Mark didn't win it. Mark Simon's coming soon. Dickey lost twice. First season in the men's room. Rather killed his quarterbacks. Mark killed his whole team. Jovi killed his season when he drafted Pitts and JT. Tell him.
James doesn't fill his lineup or score touchdowns. Ryan kept losing cause he wouldn't sit Rob down. Chris stayed mad, scored the least points. Cintola made the playoffs, lost to me, boy. Then came Rick, who got the same result. Then Andrew got cooked in the finals and brought the salt.
Every day I'm hooligan, every day I'm hooligan, every day I'm hooligan, every day I'm hooligan,
Nick sucks.
Every day I'm hooligan, every day I'm hooligan, 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 hooligan.
Chow's the champ,
but he can fuck off too.
You spent 24 on Carter before week 2.
Will not forget
how lucky you got.
You're champ, but you lucky like a bank shot.
Yeah, I'm jealous. You beat me fucking 3 times. Keep your sausage away from my fucking behind. But be kind, or else I'll rule it next season. Reigning champ sleeps outside, you best believe me. What a league. You know we marquee, blowing past the leagues like we Mach 3 best league. You know it's facts, we got the plaque. Let's go, can't wait till we run it back. More drafts, more trades, more trash talk, another deadline raid.
Every day I'm hooligan, every day I'm hooligan.
Hooligan, hooligan, Congress shine, you the champ.
But you can fuck off too. You're the champ, but you can fuck off too. Yeah. This gonna do it. What a season we had. But now, I'm out.